Wait. All right.
Most memorable shoot.
It was for Sports Illustrated. I believe
Cool.
1997. So these photographers from Sports Illustrated were traveling around the Pacific, and they were asked to, their assignment was to photograph the hottest models in the Pacific, right? And when they got to Fiji, they asked around and they were told my name. So somehow or the other, they were able to contact someone who had my contact. And he, and then blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So I contacted, so it was this shoot with these Sports Illustrated photographers. I got paid really well for it. They said, "Look, if just wait," because we established a bit of a camaraderie because of this. This is what happened, and so as they were photographing me, I could see that they weren't really like. And then they said, "Like, you've got to okay, arch your back, arch your back." I'm like, "What? What? What do you mean arch my back?" Because look, what these photographers said to me was that you're not this kind of model. You're too intelligent for this kind of model. I'm like, I don't do this kind. What were you looking for? Like, they were looking for the pout and arch models, and I'm like, oh, well, at that stage we didn't really do that in Fiji. And in Fiji at that time, when somebody was considered hot, it was a different type of thing. When they were the hottest model was a different thing. It wasn't pout and arch. So they were looking for a pout and arch model, and that wasn't me. And they meant it as a compliment that
Sure.
So that was. So it was. I remember I was in a bikini. I had all this parrotfish around me, and they wanted me to, I guess, to be sexy amongst the parrotfish. And I'm like, okay, but this makes no sense to me, and I'm not going to be the pout and arch, but I can't do that. And so these photographs never got published, but I did get paid very well. And I do believe I may still have a receipt from Sports Illustrated for this shoot that never got published, and probably the photographs have been torn up somewhere, but I was not the Sports Illustrated model. And for that, I thank you. Although my body is banging, and they did say that, but your attitude isn't. So my body was, and still is, thank you. But my attitude wasn't and still isn't. Yes. Okay.
Best runway.
Best runway. Okay, now I'm panicking because I can't remember. Actually, but some of my best runway moments have been when I have been singing on the runway, but we'll talk about that another time, as you reminded me, darling, that we will talk about. So, best runway moments, my gosh. Look, I've only ever been on a runway in Fiji, so all my runway moments are in Fiji. It's a real pity that it's, the world has missed out on my runway glory. Anyway, catwalk glory, I should say. Bring back the catwalk. Oof, gosh, maybe the 1995 Weller Design Awards. And not because of my walk, because I do not rate my walk at all. From those times, no. I know, as I said earlier, something about not being a blank, I'm not the blank canvas model. And back then also I was a celebrity in Fiji. So I was more the personality model. And back then, models were personalities, but that's another story. So this time it was because I had I was the creative director of that show, and my mind was all like what was happening on the program, the lights, et cetera. And it was only until I look back at the show, and that was now when, putting the show together, is that like, okay, I do cringe at my walk a lot. I can't lie about that. I'm like, oh God, don't do that. What are you doing? That's how I am when I'm watching myself walk in those times.
Your commentary is hilarious.
But, I do like that. It was like a very triumphant moment for me personally, as a creative, as an artist. That like, look, this is possible. You can be administrative, and know how to bring seats, bring people to seats, etc. So understand the fiscal, financial, economic side of it, and be administrative and creative and pull everything together and organize everything, and still manage to shine on the runway. But as I said back then, in those days, we were a group, and we all shone for each. We were shining for each other, so it was great. So that is my best runway moment, I'd say. Even though there were many others, but that one, yeah. That one.
Most memorable runway.
Okay, 2012, but I stopped runway modeling in Fiji in 1998. Around that time. And so I hadn't been on a runway because I said, well, in Australia, I haven't been on a runway in Australia. It's to their shame. So 2012, I was invited by this charity that is a distant relative of the show that I was a creative director of, the Weller Design Awards. But it's a charity show that uses fashion to raise money for very, very good means, and it's a very good charity. So Style Fiji. And I was invited to because it was the return of Fiji's supermodels, whatever. And it was fun. So it was memorable for me because we were all freaking out. We hadn't been on the runway for so long. The other models hadn't been on the runway for ages either. And I hadn't been on since 1998. And it's like, all of a sudden, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. What do you mean? I used to do this in a bikini? Dental floss bikini? What? I don't know how to do this. Oh my gosh. So I'm wearing a vintage dress, and and makeup and hair professionally done. Of course, great hair, the best ponytail ever, really. And I walked out first, and all I remember is a roar,
Cool.
which I did not expect to happen. So it was really nice because I hadn't also been back to Fiji since 1999, and that was the first time. And it was really nice to be welcomed back with that roar. So that's my most memorable runway.
I wish I was there.
2012, when I
cool.
first walked out to start the fashion part of the evening, and it was this, the supermodels, and I was the first one out, and that was quite something. So yeah, that was it. My most memorable runway.
Which do you prefer, runway or editorial?
Oh, look, okay. This could be a hard question. But I do love the power of a photograph, and I love photographing editorials. But no, I do love photographing runway. And I do prefer, as a model, I prefer runway. There is the theatricality of it. Look, I haven't been on recent runways, and as I said, I've never been on a runway in Australia, so I don't know, but I have seen it as a photographer for decades. And I love runway. I love the theatricality of it. I love the performance of it. That's where the art of modeling really comes into play, for the model to be able to hold the vision of the designer, and also the fantasy of the viewer and the media in between, and to be able to convey that. But that's not really what's required of models now, even though models have always been called coat hangers before we were actually a bit more personality filled. So anyway, for me, it is. I keep saying that. I don't mean to diss the young women of today. Please, that's not what I'm saying, because this is the dictate that was forced upon you to wipe your personalities. So I'm not blaming you. So yeah, but runway for me is just pure art, and I do love it. So yeah, runway.
Have you always wanted to be a model?
Sorry, I didn't realize you were recording. Have I? What was the question?
Have you always wanted to be a model?
No, not at all. Before I was asked when I was 13, that thought hadn't entered my mind. I just enjoyed clothing. I enjoyed using clothing to express my mood, and and using it as personality extension. But up till I was asked to model when I was 13, no, it had not entered my mind. And again, at 18, I wasn't seeking. And in between, I was at boarding school, etc. I wasn't looking to do that. And at 18, I wasn't seeking to model. I was asked to model. I was asked by the top designer and the top fashion person of the time. So no, I have not always wanted to be a model. My first love was writing and radio.
Ready for the next question?
Yes, I am.
Is it important to love clothes if you want to be a model?
This is a great question. And no, it's not important, but it is important to value designing and garments and clothing as art. It is important to know the history and what it all conveys, because before we even speak, what we wear tells the viewer who we are. So it is also very important for a model to understand that. So it is not important to love clothes, because there's a lot of models who aren't necessarily style icons. They're not really into fashion as being an expression of themselves. There's a model uniform. It's just jeans and a t-shirt and a blazer, and these are what all the American models wear off duty, etc. There are a few who use fashion as an expression of their personalities, and of course all the festival girlies love Kate Moss, and that's their style icon. But no, you don't really have to love clothing, but you have to understand how to use yourself to make clothing come alive. So there you go. I love clothing, and that is separate from my love of the art of modeling.
Do you think that makes you a better model?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because I appreciate the history of something. Like, for instance, what I'm wearing right now is a dress I've had since the '90s from Maya Miss. It's a pure '90s velvet chocolate brown slip, and again very thematic with the cat ears for a '90s catwalker. Um, so, as I said, it is, I feel, quite an asset that I love clothing, and that clothing is an expression of my personality, and that I can imbue anything I wear with personality, not just my personality, but the personality of the mood, that I can convey the depth and the color and the whimsy of the mood that the garment, the designer, wants you to feel. So yes, but I believe I bring that advantage to it. So
That was beautiful.
thanks, Dad.
Next one.
Yeah, my God.
Do you have a favorite designer that you have modeled for?
Well, oh yes. Goodness. Well, Nana, the garment, the design I'm wearing on the cover of the February Stylander. Nana, definitely. And well, I say I can look, every designer I've worked for, I feel it is quite an honor that they have personally asked me. And so that's quite difficult, because I really enjoyed being a face of Tiki Togs because of what it meant historically, and as a cult, from a cultural point of view, and from a colonial point of view, and from all sorts of points of view, what it meant for an Indo-Fijian young woman to be the face of a house that represented a society of Fiji that segregated, for want of a more polite way to put it. But anyway, so I enjoyed it, because I was, back then we all put artistry first, I think, and so we liked each other for each other's artistry first, and then race second. I think it should be astrology, then artistry, then race is not an issue at all, because what is that anyway? It's stupid. Okay, well, I hope I answered that question.
Totally. Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Who are you the face of?
Right. Okay. Well, look, in Fiji, I was the face of Nana, and I have been the face of Tiki Tog. So I guess I've already answered that question, really. And I, in the noughties, was the face of Hallmark Channel. My apologies. So I have done a few other things outside of modeling for runway and editorial, and so I was the face of Nana, and in recent times I have been used by, not used, I shouldn't say that, should I? I have been asked by a lot of the top designers in Fiji to walk for them, especially Isaiah Conrote, who is just a marvelous designer, and I deeply enjoy his personality and his wonderful fuss-free but really flamboyant garments, gowns, and he's designed for me, and so yes, I really enjoyed walking for him. I'm not sure if I'm a face of his, but I really enjoy representing him on the runway, and he does say he designs for me. I also have enjoyed walking for Azar, who I have closed his runway shows a few times, and I have we've photographed, and that's one of my favorite shoots, darling, and that's
And I've
on
seen you close this show twice.
So that's right,
Yeah.
and he. That was that shoot that was used for the cover of the December 2025 the Stylander magazine. So yeah, okay. Well, I think that answers.
Yeah, very cool.
That question.
Did you pursue modeling internationally?
No, I didn't. I modeled a bit in Hong Kong when I was singing there, and that was not serious. I did a shoot for a boutique, and when I say not serious, I didn't pursue it. It was just something that I thought I'll try and see if I can do, just to earn, like, I don't know, we'll see if I can do it. Not earn money. I got paid really well when I was singing there. It was just something it was good to do, to explore, to push my boundaries and not just be a big fish in a small pond. Hong Kong was really good for me, and I think we'll talk about that another time. But I did model a bit there, and that was just that one shoot and a fashion parade for a luncheon on a boat, and that was an interesting thing in itself, because I saw the competitiveness of people. Because when we were all, when we went to, to see if we were picked for the show, there were some other people there, of course, lots of other models there, and I got talking to a few, and but I remember this young this other, I was young, I was 24. This other young woman say to me, it was time for us to go in. She said to me, "Oh, great stretch, or good stretch." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I was actually, sinking myself to, which I have seem to have done a lot in my entire life, sunk my true height. I'm now at my true height, and it's quite lovely to be there, even though I feel I was robbed of it initially, which is another story. But so yeah, that was.
So all you did was just stand straight.
Yes, but anyway, so that was it. That's really my only thing I have done. So I didn't pursue international modeling internationally, because I was a journalist and a writer and singing. So I was singing. So yeah.
Did you continue modeling when you migrated to Australia?
Well, I didn't, and not for want of trying. Look, I'd had an agent. I moved here in 1999, and I did have an agent, and a few agents actually, before I ended up with the last one, it was great. I got a lot of great gigs, a lot of television commercials, and great international commercials, etc. But I didn't work as a model. I did a lot of television work, and even though I was told, and even though I did get interviewed by a national broadcaster to be a presenter, and I was told I was very good, but because I hadn't done the hard yards and that's another story. But I was still pursuing all the things I had been doing for 10 years prior to that, prior to moving to Australia, and finding out that they demanded you only be this or that. You couldn't be this and that and this and that as well. So that was interesting to me. And then also I really got the impression, mostly because I was also told that they didn't really do brown faces, and that I wasn't really, and they would tell me that I wasn't the right height, even though I was above average, and I would say I'm taller than Kate Moss, and all these things. It was just like, so it's a real, they don't, they didn't want, it's diverse now and inclusive. But back then it was just, no, I'm sorry, we've got one brown face on television, we've got no brown voices, and we want less than no brown voices on radio back then. And certainly in the modeling industry, in Australia, they didn't want any models. So, but I did a lot of commercials, not necessarily for Australia. I did a lot of commercials for overseas productions, and they were so fun. And through this agent, I also, gosh, what was some of the? There was this wonderful ad for, look, look, I can't say. Look, it was for cigarettes, but it was only for Asia, and you had to be above a certain age. But my gosh, they paid us well.
It was a different
It
time.
was different times,
Man.
and they just dressed us up fantastically. But I'll talk about that one another time. So, and then I was the face of Hallmark Channel, and I was, then used for another a Nokia ad, I think, for international markets, and a lean cuisine ad, etc. So a lot of international productions. And I was in a lot of movies for fellow artists and a filmmaker friend who he used me as his glamorous prop, I would call myself, because I'm not an actor. But having said that, because my agent knew I was a sci-fi freak, when Star Wars and The Matrix came to town, she put me up for it, and I got chosen to be in certain scenes for, because they were choosing people for how we looked. So in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, I'm in the nightclub scene when the assassin has, gone in there to hide from Anakin and Obi-Wan.
So cool, man.
So I'm in that scene. It was so cool. And these are all the top models of the time. And my gosh, goodness me. Anyway, so I loved being there because I'm a Star Wars freak, and everybody there thought I was such a, interesting person. I don't know how they thought of me, because I was a Star Wars nerd with all my facts and all the things I knew about it. So, and then of course, in The Matrix, I was on that too, and that was such a great shoot. Yes, Keanu Reeves is as nice as they say, as is Lawrence Fishburne, as is Carrie-Anne Moss, who was pregnant at the time of filming. She's super tiny and super athletic. And so, yes, they're all very nice people. And the Wachowskis were very mysterious. And the set was all very cool. We were all models there that were chosen for this scene where Morpheus, Trinity, and Neo go to visit the Merovingian to go
very
get
cool
the key, key keeper, whatever. And this is where they walk in. So I was placed thus because of my back, because I was wearing a low-cut dress. And so they placed me there as the camera was walking in. So those are the things I did as a model. I didn't work as an editorial model and not as a runway model, but those are fun things I did. I really loved those things. I think I'll talk more about them some other time, but those are the fun things. Yes. Oh, look, my son goes ill.
You up there? Mic's off. The mic's off.
Mic's on. Okay, hang on. Okay. Okay. I'm ready.
What does it take to be a model?
Okay. Well, firstly, there's the physical attributes. And look, that's all determined by a very Eurocentric point of view. And I think look, this is a big world, and culturally, we all have very different ideas of what beauty is, but there's also such a thing as a biological standard. And so perhaps there is a need to have something like an ISO for the modeling industry as well, like an international standard organization, in case you're wondering what that term means, and that's a photographic term. That's all that means. I do feel that height does matter, and thinness has always mattered, and apparently it's caused issues. But I think that thinness is about lack of material, and also just garments sit a certain way on a more svelte body. That's not to say that only svelte bodies are models, but it does require some physical attributes. And perhaps what it does require is the ability to convey magnificence in some point of view, in some way. Even fragility can appear magnificent if ethereal and dressed such. So that's one thing. And then you've got to have guts. And by that, I mean you've got to have a real sense of self. You've got to have self-esteem. This industry is not run by beautiful people. In fact, the modeling industry is really run by non-beautiful people. And it's they're going to trash you a lot. They trash people. And a lot of things have got to change. I really feel that only ex models should run modeling agencies, and fashion events should be run by a variety of people. But it seems to be run by people who hate beautiful people because my goodness me, they're very nasty about beautiful people. So I do say you should have guts and self-esteem, but I really hope we are heading into a world that that is not required, that you're not going to be trashed and said, ugh, that's not what we're looking for, or go lose some weight, or blah blah blah. That is terrible. You should, people like me should be running modeling agencies. And for a while, I was creative director of a very significant modeling agency started in Wollongong, Australia, by Terry Ann Lapper. And that story is on the Stylander, one of our issues last year. Terry Ann Lapper, unfortunately, is no longer with us, but Ethnic Model Management, EMM, was making waves for a while, and she asked me to join as creative director. That's a story for another time, but it is on the Stylander, and the links will be in the caption for this show. So it does require self-esteem, though, because even if people aren't saying harsh things to you, you still will encounter a lot of rejection because you are not the look that person requires. You've got to have a healthy sense of esteem that says, all right, well, thank you very much. And it was a lovely experience, and move on to the next one. So you've got to have that. And you also have to have camaraderie with the camera.
What makes a good model?
Oh gosh, sorry, I can't believe I was looking down. What makes a good model? Being camera ready. Okay, look, I had to make some notes about that because you asked me that off camera, and I had to make some quick notes. So I've written here, takes direction well, and I do need my glasses because what have I written? Oh, takes direction well, listens to the photographer, but this is very important, is assertive.